Hello, Gordon.
Hello, Mr. Ott. What a pleasure to be here with you.
Man, it's so good to have you and Janet back on the program.
Well, I just have so much stuff to tell you that I could fill a whole show just about Planet X or a whole show about making the Philosopher's Stone like the ancient alchemists.
hmm Wait a minute. What do you mean making? Are you making one?
Well, it turns out that it's there's seven what they call noble metals that are in the periodic chart of the elements, and they don't interact with anything. Like if you made a new gold coin or a new platinum coin and you put it on the bottom of the ocean for 10,000 years and then went and got it, it would look like the day it was minted. They don't
hmm
react to anything.
hmm
And there's seven of them. There's uh, iridium, um, palladium, osmium, and another one I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, and you have seven chakras in your body and
hmm
seven glands
Oh,
in your body that your body runs on, and each one stimulates a different gland. And you can't like take gold and turn it into a white powder where it's monoatomic. But when you learn the secret of it, which is pretty simple because it turns out this stuff is everywhere, and they've invented a new word for it, Ormus, Ormus. And you can't go to school at Stanford or Harvard or Cambridge or MIT and learn anything about it at all. But you can go to YouTube, and I got a master's degree from YouTube in June and July, and now I'm getting my PhD because I'm actually making this stuff. And
wow.
it's monoatomic. In other words, it's a white powder, and it's got each little speck is one atom, and it's not connected. So normal, for instance, because this is a big subject, gold has two electrons in the outer shell, and it shares one of the electrons with the gold atom that's next to it, and that's what makes the color gold. It makes it into a metal. But when you get rid of that extra electron, it becomes a single atom that doesn't react with anything. And the Egyptian word for it was mufkat,
hmm
Mfkzt.
hmm
Try and pronounce that.
hmm
Mufkat. And that means, what is it? And the Sumerian name for it was Shimana, and that means, what is it? And the Jewish name for it was Mana, and that also means, what is it? And so they've been making this for thousands of years, but
hmm
they were only feeding it to the pharaohs and the kings.
hmm
And I used to be interested in alchemists, and I read that book Morning of the Magicians in the 70s,
hmm
early 70s, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to make the Philosopher's Stone, but how do you do it? And it was always put that they were trying to turn lead into gold, but that wasn't it at all. It's trying to turn your lower self into your higher self.
hmm
So nothing happened. Then in the early 90s, Nexus magazine did a big series of articles about white powdered gold. Well, how do you make it? Well, there was nowhere to go and nowhere to learn it and nobody to ask and nothing to do. And then in the 90s, a guy discovered he had fields of Ormus in his cotton crop. He had 70,000 acres of cotton, and every season, a white crust would form on top of the ground. And he's like, how can I get rid of this? What is it? And so he found out, and then he did a series of lectures, but there was no internet, so nobody knew about it. But then the internet came out, and they put his lectures online. I think his name is David Hutchinson,
Okay.
and they put his videos online, and then people started experimenting. And now I'm making it at home with sea salt
Uh huh.
and washing soda. You can go to Walmart or any grocery store, and right in the laundry section they have borax, they have detergent,
hmm
and lo and behold, they have washing soda from Arm& and Hammer. You've heard of baking soda, that's sodium bicarbonate. Washing soda is sodium carbonate, and it's an
hmm
alkaline. So you mix the sea salt with water, you mix the washing soda with water, and you put some of the washing soda into the sea salt solution, and it precipitates these white flakes. And they settle to the bottom. They take 24 hours to settle, and then you dump the water, siphon it off, and refill it with fresh water, and you do that 7 times. So you have to wash it 7 times.
Okay.
When you do, you've got a substance that doesn't test as anything. People have sent it for chemical analysis, and it comes out nothing. It won't react with anything. That's how chemists find out what something is what it reacts or doesn't react with. It doesn't react with anything.
Well,
So then they send it for spectroscopy, and the spectroscope was like, well, when are you going to put something in there? And it was already in there, and they couldn't get it to burn off any part of it and tell what it was. Then they sent it for neutrino bombardment,
okay.
and they couldn't tell what it was. So it's a really unusual substance, and they have to redo the periodic chart of the atoms for this stuff. But now people around the world are making it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's verify. You're not still high from the residue of the 70s, right?
No. I came down a long time ago.
Okay.
Well, I remember I took my last acid trip. I probably only took about 5 in 1971, and I go, wow. Now I understand everything, but I'm too stoned to do anything about it. So I go, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Well, that's good there. So, all right. So you're in the process of creating a philosopher's stone. There's all kinds of things going on. Also about the Planet X, as Janet was telling me. What's your latest information? And switch me over to Janet.
Yeah.
Well, here she is. First of all, let her say hello.
All right.
She's looking forward to this.
Okay.
Hi, Daniel. How
Hey,
you
Janet.
doing?
Oh, doing outstanding.
Oh, good. I just want to tell you real quick before you have Gordon talk. I saw a small egg-shaped saucer in June of this summer.
Right out her bedroom window.
Yeah, I was looking out the bedroom window, and it was just going.
Wow.
It's hovering there.
It was 1.5 feet in diameter, and it was straight out the window. She looks out at the top of the mountain. Her window's the same height as the top of the mountain, which is like 50 feet away.
Well, who was there? Midgets in there? What do you mean, 1.5 feet in diameter?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people report that they saw this disc, and then they go on board it. And when they're on board it, it's 1/2 mile long. And they go, what I saw couldn't have been 1/2 mile long, but when I went inside it, it was. So there seems to be some sort of dimensional thing where it looks one way to us, but when you're actually on it, it's something different. So
Sounds
Or
like.
it could have been a scout ship.
Well, that's it.
Yeah,
So Janet, did you go outside to see if it comes
Oh,
from
yeah,
a
I
mother?
yelled to Gordon. He was downstairs.
yeah, I was downstairs, and she immediately yelled to me, there's a saucer over the top of the mountain, and it's only 1.5 feet long. And so she's watching it from the upstairs window, and it zigzagged off into the north field out of sight because the window faces east. And it zigzagged off to the left, and then it zigzagged back to where it started from, and then it started zigzagging to the right. And she decided enough of looking at it through a window, so she ran downstairs and ran outside, and it was gone, and it never came back. But our black cat was sitting there looking at the sky like, what in the hell was that? If it had been a little bit smaller, he might have tried to catch it.
And in 1991, what was interesting, in June 1991 is when I had my real big...
Our first
together, our first
saucer
sighting.
in the yard. Yeah.
In our yard. I was dreaming about it and then woke up and saw it. So that's sort of an anniversary I celebrate every year in June. So it was kind of cool that it came in June. But it's like that for me at Christmas, too. I tend to always get a sighting lately on Christmases. It's like they're coming to say hello, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, Janet, have they ever probed you?
Probed me.
Oh, while she's unconscious, I'm sure they have.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember any probing, but
You're all about insertion, aren't you?
I've been told. No, we got to understand the full spectrum of what could possibly happen.
Exactly.
I just came back from a Gen 6 conference, and there was a giant there. And they always say that back in the days of Noah, there were giants in the land. And, of course, this says they had some relations with human women. And I've always wondered about how that all worked. But, okay, so, Janet, these aliens, do you say you have regular visitations?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, she's in touch with them.
I meditate, and I tend to, they'll come zooming in my meditation, And it's mostly the Zetas, but I've dealt with other kinds of ETs too, but the Zetas always are around me, because they're the ones I had the children with.
The little grays.
The little grays that I had
big
the children
eyes.
with.
Yeah.
Spindly bodies, big heads, telepathic.
But they're always around, and when I go, even I could be like 100 miles away, and it may not be until a day or two, and they let me know they're right there.
Yeah. Now, so
Yeah,
they've never
we were
really
at
harmed you guys.
They came through the wall of the hotel room, and four of them, and each one sat on a different corner of the bed because she was quite agitated.
I think I have a chip. I'm
They
almost
calmed her down.
sure.
From who, though?
So they're
Well, I know one on my right shoulder for some.
Yeah, a psychic said that you have a kindly reptilian that's helping you.
With and he rubs my right shoulder a lot to try to wipe away the bad stuff. But I think they're just always in contact. It may not be a chip, but it just may that they know where I'm at.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, and you too, Gordon. It says that you feel like you were selected by aliens. Both of you guys have been selected. Now, what is the attribute that they're looking for?
Well, that's what's interesting. Since we talked to you last, a friend paid for us to have what's called a soul reading from this guy Gary Peter Carlson out in California, and he douses to get his information. And there's a certain minimum number that you have to get to be to ascend at this ascension that's coming up, the movement of the Earth to the fourth dimension.
Right.
And he said that we were both like 58 or 59, which means that we're not just going to the fourth dimension, we're going to go to the sixth and seventh dimensions. And the reason why is because Janet's what they call a watcher, and she made a contract with the creator to come here to bring light and love during this period. And I'm a starseed who volunteered to come here from a higher dimension to also bring light and love. And so we've been working together. So we're very advanced souls, this reading said, which I would tend to believe because it seemed to fit pretty well.
Well, is your favorite group the Fifth Dimension?
No.
Well, I feel like I have ascended. We're all about light and love here on the Edge broadcast.
Right.
But they haven't.
Well, that's why we look forward to it. We thought you had forgotten about us. We were worried.
No, I can never forget. You guys old friends.
Say, boy, have I got some stuff to tell you.
Well, yeah, man. So hey, but let me ask you guys this. Some people say that if you have night vision goggles, you can actually look up and see UFOs battling it out. Have you guys ever tried that?
Geez, I work for this guy, Justin, and he saw an ad for Generation 3 state-of-the-art military night vision goggles for $1,200. So he had hid the money, and he thought, wow, that'll be exciting. So he got it, and he brought it up here, and it was a misty kind of a night, and we're at the top of the mountain, and we look out at 300 islands in the Gulf of Maine. And it's kind of misty, and you could just see a few stars. You couldn't see any airplanes. And then he said, look at this. And he took a quarter, and now remember, there's no moon. It's just mist and a few stars. And we couldn't see any airplanes, although this is the route from Europe to New York. So he threw a quarter about 25 feet away, and he said, here, look at this. And we put these night vision goggles on. We could read the date on the quarter.
Wow.
I was like, oh, my God. So we looked up at the sky, and it looked like grains of sand on an endless beach. And you could see airplanes going between Europe and New York nonstop, like a couple hundred of them. And you could see all kinds of other stuff. But there's many people that say that, because do you know that you need a special permit from the federal government to buy an infrared camera?
Did not know.
Yeah, you have to tell them what you're going to do with it. And if they don't like what you say, then you don't get it. And the best one of all is the Fuji S1, and it costs about $1,000. And that will photo anything that can be seen on the infrared, that camera will take a picture of. I don't have it. I've never applied for such a permit. Well, it turns out this night vision set was stolen from the National Guard Armory, and the FBI came looking for it and took it back.
Question come in. It says, this is from one of the chats. We've got a couple chats watching the program. What's the weirdest thing the aliens ever did when they visited you guys?
Let me see. Weirdest.
I didn't have. I'll tell you this. I've never had anything weird. It's like two intelligent adults meeting each other to discuss interesting stuff. So I never had something weird happen. Janet, of course, had in vitro fertilization, and became pregnant. And 6 weeks later, they came back and took the baby, who was half human extraterrestrial and half Earth human, her. And somehow they have a way of raising a child after 6 weeks, which would have to be, what, in a test tube? And then later on, they would invite her to go up on the mothership and meet her children. So she has like a dozen or more children. She's been taken up many times to meet them. And one of them was older by then and said, would you like to go on a ride around the solar system with a flying saucer? And she said yes. So she got a tour of the, but she's not scientific, so she didn't even know what she was looking at, and they were just talking while they zoomed around.
Well,
but she saw it all up
instruments
close.
and I saw the planets. But she goes, "Would you like to go to the moon or maybe Mars?" And I said, "Yeah, Mars." So we were zooming off.
But you didn't land on Mars.
No. But I
you just
remember it
flew low
clearly,
over it,
and I remember what she looked like, and everything. And then I've met a son, and they told me his name. And not, he was very small, but over the years, these children are looking more and more like us.
They look like us, but a little bit sleek, a little modernized.
Yeah.
Thinner, taller, elongated head slightly, not wide, not with big eyes, regular eyes, but bigger eyes than normal Earth humans, and sparse hair. Because the Zetas don't have any hair, and of course we have full heads of hair, so it's like sparse hair. But they're our height, 6 feet tall, and they're going to live 400 years. They're telepathic, and they have IQs of 300. So you really don't want to mess with them, and they're all very nice because that's what they are, is unselfish aliens. And they're, of course, out there. There's the bad and the ugly, the selfish ones, and you don't want to have anything to do with them. So no, we haven't had any. I know people who have had frightening experiences, and it makes me wonder, because I think like attracts like. So if we're spiritual and we full of love and acceptance, that and unconditional love, that we attract those kinds of aliens. So the people that are selfish and evil and always plotting to backstab somebody, they may be meeting the selfish ones that we never want to meet.
Yeah, I think I have a picture. I think I have a picture in the background now that is one kind of the reptilian they will meet if they are not good people. This guy looks like a real mean bastard. But I tell you what, Janet. So do they put thoughts in your mind sometimes and try to telecommunicate with you?
Well, they do telepathy with me, mind to mind.
And me too.
But it's mostly like when I meditate or when I have dreams that are very awake dreams, they send unconditional love, so there's no fear.
So it's like a spiritual
feeling. Like my family, and it's a spiritual experience. The first one I saw with Gordon in June 1991, I had a dream I was on the saucer. And then I said, I really
in the dream, you asked him if you could see them physically, not in a dream.
And I woke up and I went down. My black cat was on my chest, which he never is. So he must have been holding me down from astral traveling. But anyway, I went downstairs to close the door. The screen door
was about 4 in the morning. It was a little bit cool. It was in June 9th.
So I look out, and there's a saucer just over the treetop.
We had a little maple tree. It was about 15 feet tall, and hovering about 5 feet above that, right in the yard, right in the village of Stonington, Maine, right there, where we used to live, was this 35-foot disc that was nickel colored, and it had a dome on top of it, and the air around it was ionized, the most beautiful orange, and the air around the dome on the top was ionized, the most beautiful LED red. So it was absolutely gorgeous. And so she called me, and I came downstairs, and we stood there about 50 feet away looking up at it. It was wobbling a little bit like a canoe at anchor in a lake or a harbor with a little bit of chop. And so it was wobbling just a little teensy little bit. It was totally silent. And we looked at it for 20 minutes, and the overwhelming feeling we had was that we were in the presence of God, unconditional love. It was like a spiritual experience like you can't believe.
So Janet, how did you feel about that situation?
Same.
Well, yeah, I was the same, but this was the first one I've really seen up close, even though I dreamt about being on one. It was the first one I saw up close, so I was a little nervous to go out by myself just because it was so new to me. So that's when I woke Gordon up. I said, "You've got to come down here and look at the saucer." So he came right down, and then we both went out, and we just stood together for 20 minutes. But I felt safe, but then
I didn't remember being on the saucer, but she said that we were on the saucer, and a congregational minister we knew was on the saucer, but he was slumped at the corner of the wall on the floor, and he was like unconscious, but he was there. And I was talking to the praying mantis people who had robes on with hoods, and so they wouldn't scare me. And we were discussing mathematics and science of like space travel. And that's when she interrupted and said, because there were Zetas there, she said, "Can I see you physically when I'm awake?" So then we did. So I didn't remember any of that talking to the praying mantis people. Although when she said that, I could picture it. It was like the picture of it was right there, like I had done it, and I just didn't have it at the tip of my tongue. But when she said it, it was like the tip of my tongue.
Well, is that Janet in the background? Janet, did you just say that you did see it?
Oh, yeah, I saw it all. I mean,
she saw them.
That was an awake dream, like an astral travel dream.
Lucid dream.
Lucid, but they took me up on the saucer, and then I woke up and I went out to actually see the saucer I was on, and I thanked him so much.
Oh, yeah, we were full of thanks. And it was 4 a.m, and they stayed there till about 4:20. And then they slowly sashayed over to the west, and that was just before the whole village woke up to go lobster fishing.
And Gordon had gone right to see the minister afterwards, and he goes, before Gordon had a word to say, he goes, "Listen, I got to tell you the dream I had last night. I was up on a saucer."
Right.
So that kind of verified.
But he didn't remember anything about anything.
And we weren't really close friends. We just knew him.
Right.
So there was a preacher on the ship?
Yeah, with us.
It wasn't Joe Osteen, was it?
He was on the side of the ship.
He was an odd duck anyway, because
I'd say
he was very selfish, and he went to Yale Divinity School so that he could become a minister, a congregational minister in a really wealthy parish where he would have tons of money income and also to spend on things. And so that was his goal. And he eventually moved down to a bigger southern Maine, to an even bigger church, where big deal. And he had a radio show for a while.
He wrote a book.
But he was, I didn't like him, and his wife was she goes, "I've never eaten out of a can, and I'm never gonna." Well, okay, fine.
Wow.
So you're the elite, and you just don't have anything.
Right. They don't eat out of cans. That's the thing right there.
So yeah. So, I wouldn't say I eat out of cans every day, but, I've been out on a boat and we put a can in the hot thing where there's always hot water to kill the algae on the lobster traps. So you put a can of soup in there, and then you open it up with a knife and have the soup. I mean, so what? You know?
So Gordon, do you and Janet go lobster hunting or fishing?
No, you need a license to do that, and it's all work. All the time. You get covered with the smell of herring bait, salted herring.
He was a stern man.
I did work as a stern man on a lobster boat for a year.
Now, you guys are on top of a mountain in Maine that the
2 miles back from the coast, and we can look all the way down to the Gulf of Maine and see 300 islands sparkling in the moonlight.
And it says that you have a lot of blueberries up there. What's going on with that?
34 acres of blueberry fields, yeah.
Okay, well, help me out here, man. I've been trying to grow blueberries. What do I got to do to the soil?
Well, it's got to be very acidic, and these are the native ankle-high low bush blueberries. The blueberries that you've probably seen are a bush that's about 6 or 8 feet tall, and they're quite tasty too. But it's very different.
Should I fertilize them with alien droppings?
I would.
Yeah.
I would.
I mean, that's.
Well, they say, blueberries are probiotic. You want to include them in your diet every chance you.
Well, you can also send them the alien love, your own love, and ask the aliens to send them love.
Okay, so if I start sending them love, how long is it going to take for them to contact me?
Well, that's
Oh,
the thing
you
is that
should.
they may know better than you whether you can handle it, and they may decide they can't. They're not going to do it because your wife would leave you, or
Yeah,
your children, or your
yeah.
parents, your friends, or your business associates that
Well,
all go,
that definitely
"Wow,
ain't going to be two
you lost."
timing it with no alien, though. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
But all right, so they're here to help. Now, you guys know that everybody wants to know why the aliens are here. Now, they're wanting to spread love, but from what I can understand, a whole lot of aliens are here for destruction. They want to destroy this planet.
Well, no, no. See, that's the thing is that there's
Is
so
that
many
fake? Is that
aliens
fake
that have so
news?
much technology they could have just destroyed it if they wanted to,
Okay.
100 million years ago. That
Okay.
isn't the problem. The thing is that we're about to have the apocalypse,
Oh.
and at this apocalypse caused by Planet X, at this apocalypse, there's going to be right after that. There's going to be a graduation to the fourth dimension. So that's what it means in the last book in the Bible. The meek will inherit the earth. That's because it'll only be unselfish people here. Because on the fourth dimension, there's no such things as a mix of selfish and unselfish.
Mm-hmm.
So the planets, and when they go to the next level, then there's a separation. So they're planets where they're like prison planets. There's all selfish people. No matter how selfish you are, everyone else on the planet's more selfish than you could ever imagine. And so they're going to have to spend 1,000
Mm-hmm.
lifetimes. And you can't just go, oh, I made a mistake. I should have been kind and empathetic. No, you're going to spend
Mm-hmm.
1,000 lifetimes on those prison planets. But the
Whoa!
Earth, the
I'll
Earth is
bust.
going
I'll
to
bust
be
out right now.
an unselfish planet.
I'll bust out a prison planet, man. Hey, did you? Are you guys aware that that some group, I don't know who did it, they put the Arch of Baal on the Washington Mall, which faces directly to the Capitol. Have you guys seen that?
No, that sounds just lovely.
That sounds just lovely. Sounds like me though. Well, the reason I asked because I think it's somebody trying to create a portal, and maybe some of these alien types are going to come through there, kind of like like a
No,
vortex or a.
no, they're pretty much banned from expanding their operations. And excuse me.
Yeah, it's
No, what they want to do,
Yeah.
they see they could destroy it if they wanted to, but they didn't want to destroy it. What they want to do is mess around with us. They want the control and the fun of causing people to be selfish because they're recruiting selfish people for the fourth dimensional planets. So if you're really selfish and you take your inspiration from them, you're going to graduate to a prison planet. And
Mm-hmm.
they have trouble recruiting people because people have a tendency to be empathetic and kind.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to get you to block the empathy. They've got to get you to think anger and revenge and fear because that's how they use as a recruitment tool. So that's one thing you want to never do is become angry or fearful.
Because what you're saying is if you're angry or fearful, they use that to
Yes,
enter into
yeah.
this dimension.
And they're on their ships they have somebody pretending to be God, and they've got this whole scenario of power and control, and you better do what we say or else it'll be the end of you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you're meeting the unselfish aliens, it's all like hugs and kisses, except they don't really hug you, but
no.
No, what do they do?
and Zetas don't even have voice boxes, so they can't talk. But the other aliens, like the ones I've been talking to on ships, the Pleiadians, they have voice boxes. They're very social. They will hug you and they will talk to you at length.
So
Whereas
Gordon,
the Zetas just
now,
sent
are we talking like
pictures.
we're talking about man hugs here, man? They ain't gay, are they?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm Sicilian, and every time I meet an English person and I want to go hug them, they're like, back off. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. You're the cold English type. You don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in any affection at all.
Yeah, I imagine they're not going to go down there to San Francisco, but all right. So hey, how many times have you been contacted, Gordon?
Oh, quite it has to be several thousand times, maybe tens of thousands. I don't know. It seems like almost every day since I was born. And
Mm-hmm.
by the way, on Tuesday the 2nd, I will be 70 years old at 12 noon.
Right at 12 noon. Right on. Right on.
Yeah, my mother was pregnant. It was October 2nd, 1948,
Mm-hmm.
and the fire siren for a lunch break blew, And as the fire siren was going off in Old Greenwich, Connecticut, out I popped.
Well, at least you weren't born on a spaceship and then dropped down in a maternity ward,
Mm.
or were you?
No, I had a real mother and a real father, and I look like half my mother and half my father. So
You
Yeah,
do.
I
You
do
do look.
too.
so-
My father and mother, yeah. My mother's Scandinavian. My father's real tall, like 6'7".
Like a gray. Hey, like a Scandinavian. Wait a minute. Aren't there like Nordics? Is he a Nordic, Janet?
no, he is part Scottish and part American Indian, but he was 6'7".
A little German, but he
And
is
her
part
mother
no-
was Swedish and
Yeah.
was 6 feet tall. So Janet's
Okay.
6 feet tall.
All
My
right.
father has some Scandinavian blood.
All right. All right, Gordon. I'm gonna check your reality with Janet. Janet. He says he's Sicilian. Can he make a mean pizza?
He's one of the. I've traveled all over the world.
She
this
lived with
rich
a
guy,
billionaire for 10 years.
and I went to some of the finest restaurants, right?
Yeah.
And I
right.
beat him
Right
all.
on.
And
Hands
when
down,
he
right?
really liked cooking and everything was peachy keen and we weren't getting older, and he still can cook, but
I just cooked dinner tonight.
yeah,
What'd you have,
is
man?
the best cook in the world. His flavoring comes from like
Everybody said I should have had a restaurant.
he's like got the flavors down pat. He's like a gourmet.
Give me any ingredients and I'll turn it into the
He's a
tastiest
chemist
meal
when
you
it
could.
comes to cooking.
Just
real
a natural
So-
flair. For
Well,
it.
as an alchemist, seems like you would be able to take a lot of food products and make something great out of it.
Yeah, and he does.
So you guys are up on the mountain now. Has anybody ever like come up there and like try to harass you guys?
Well,
Well.
over certain issues, like I have a old house in another town, and somebody came up and said, "You better sell it to my what is it, niece or nephew or something,
My daughter.
a daughter, yeah, sell it to my daughter,
Yeah.
and if you don't, that's unneighborly," and gave me hell for
Okay,
it.
that sound like they got some kind of hateful grudge in their heart.
Yeah, we've had harder times.
Well, the reason I
Because, you know, so many people believe, and it's on TV, and
yeah.
you,
Well,
a lot
Yeah,
of people
and,
come
you know,
up to us and tell us their
we
experience.
we had our first date on October 19th, 1990. So
Mm-hmm.
this will be. I got a cat.
A lot of nines there. Hey, what about this spooky cat business,
So
though,
we
man?
have, we'll finish 28 years this October 18th, and on the 19th we'll begin our 29th year together.
That is so sweet. Well, the reason I asked you if anybody come up there because we had a guest years ago called Hannah Billups, and she was sort of like an empath, and she always had alien things going on. She could levitate various things, and she lived on a mountain. But it was the FBI came up there one time, and they tried to use her powers to remote view various things, and they didn't go well. So I just make sure you guys are safe up there.
Yeah, no, we haven't ever had that. We had my brother and I were home in Reading, Connecticut, while my father was still working, and he invented the field of package design and industrial design. And he did he invented the flip-top box for Marlboro cigarettes, and he did the package, the design of the label that's on there. 80% of the women look at it and see a house, and 90% of the men look at it and see a mountain.
Yeah.
And it's been the #1 brand in the world since the day it came out. So he went over Russia. The Soviet Union hired him to come and talk to them about international marketing of Russian products, which I don't know. When I go to the store, I don't see any products from Russia. But
So
who
there's
knows
no Russian
why?
collusion there.
Maybe there. But anyway, so we're in the house, my brother and I,
Okay.
and this big black limo drives up, and like 6 FBI agents or Secret Service or government agents,
Okay.
black slacks, black jacket, black tie, white shirt, crew cut, sunglasses, 6 of them come in the kitchen and where's your father? Oh, he's in the Soviet Union. What's he doing there? Well, if you knew anything about him, he's the world's greatest expert on international marketing, and they hired him. They paying him to go speak to them in Russia, and like, oh, and what else is he doing? No, I said that's what he does. His company is in New York, Mexico City, Munich, London, Paris, and Tokyo. He speaks 7 languages, and he's designed products in every world. He died in 1988, and the Marlboro pack is still the #1 brand in the world.
Very good, very good. In fact, somebody put that in our live chat right there. Put the marble in there. Well, listen, it's right about 9 o'clock. We take a 5 minute break. We leave you guys on the line, but we turn it down. Gordon and Janet, do you guys have another upcoming show you're going to be on, or what's in your guys' near
Well, I
future?
always have my show Friday nights on Revolution
Oh,
Radio.
how can they get
If
that?
if I after the break, I'll give everybody
Yeah.
the phone number. There's a dial to listen number that works great.
Okay. Well, you two hang on the line there. We'll be right back with you in about 5 minutes. Playlist.
God
Don't
bless.
forget, next week we'll have with us Troy Anderson and Paul McGuire on the program. Let's go back to our newsmaker line and bring back Gordon and Janet. Gordon and Janet, are you there?
Oh
Yes,
yes,
we are.
we are.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. We got all kinds of questions coming in for you two. Everybody just loves you guys. One
Can
of
I
the-
say can I say something before
Sure.
about I have a radio show every Friday night at midnight Eastern time on Revolution Radio for 2 hours from midnight till 2 a.m. And there's a dial to listen number. So if you have a pen and piece of paper, what you do is you plug your cell phone into the charger, you put it on speakerphone, you dial this number, and you listen to my show. And it's a number for all of Studio A. So there's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's somebody on. But my show is Friday night at midnight. I just did my 218th consecutive Friday night show. Haven't
Wow.
missed a one of them.
Look at you. Okay, do you have that number, or where do we get it?
Yeah, it's 605
Mhm.
313
Mhm.
0025.
All right. All right, Jay, do you want to put that in the chats there? Put that number in there for the folks who can tune into that. Definitely.
Yeah, so people who want to listen to me can listen on Friday night at midnight. Dial that number and listen. A lot of people have smartphones and unlimited calling, so and it comes in so clear on that dial to listen number.
Mm-hmm. Is Janet participate with that?
Sometimes.
Well, occasionally she usually does a Christmas show with me, but most of the time she goes
Oh.
to bed early, and I'm here.
Man, what is a Christmas show like with you guys?
Well, she's read "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
Oh yeah.
and
Wait a
all.
minute, Janet, didn't you read that here on this program?
I think we did
Yeah,
Christmas
that's
with
right.
you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I usually have a saucer episode, so I talk about that.
Okay. Well, can we have you guys back around Christmas time and you can read to us?
Yeah.
Love
too.
it. Oh my
But
goodness.
listen, I'm telling you, I really have 2 shows worth of stuff just talking about all the stuff that Planet X has been up to,
Right.
and then the other show about how you can make the Philosopher's Stone at home. Did you know that trees accumulate Ormus from the ground? Monoatomic noble group metals like gold, platinum, and it's in seawater, and that's why it's in sea salt. And so you can actually precipitate this from maple syrup.
Uh-huh.
But remember the story about the 3 wise men followed the star in the east of Bethlehem to find Jesus, and then they gave him gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
They
guess
made it
what? He didn't give him a bar of gold. Mary and Joseph were the 2 wealthiest people in the Middle East. That would be like you going to visit Donald Trump and giving him a bar of gold.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You wouldn't do it. But they gave him white gold to activate his telepathy, his wisdom, his intuition. And they gave him frankincense and myrrh, which is the sap from 2 different desert bushes that's really sticky and gummy.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't dissolve in water. So what you would do is take a cup of wine and dissolve a little frankincense and myrrh, and then stir in this white powder, which is individual atoms of gold. And then he would drink that, and it would activate his higher consciousness instantly.
Uh-huh.
And they did a study in Switzerland where they gave it to all these kids that had ADHD and stuff like that, and they had them hooked up to electroencephalographs, which measure brain waves,
Mhm.
and they were charting that like each one of them had half his brain going and the other half wasn't active at all.
Yeah.
And then they fed them, and as soon as the stuff touched their mouth, the reaction was instantaneous. Both sides of the brain came alive and had the same huge brainwave pattern. And so the scientists, after the study was done, said this about Ormus. They said it's instantaneous,
Yeah.
it's permanent, and it's cumulative.
Yeah.
So that's why you got to keep making it and teaching it. So I'd
Oh,
love
we
to
gotta
do
love
a
that
show
Ormus.
about how to make it at home. You could schedule that now.
Well, you can bake it, shake it, and put it in the stew. Hey, let me ask you, Gordon. We got a number of questions. People picking up on that Planet X. It says Chuck in Florida says, "Could you give us a short Planet X report now?"
Yes. It's 30 million miles from Earth. It's stopped because gravity pushes it, doesn't pull, so it's not going to collide with the Earth. It's at the same level from the sun as the orbit of Venus. And Venus came up towards it, and it stopped Venus in its orbit. It stopped the Earth in its orbit. And there's a twin of Earth called the dark twin of Earth that's a burned out cinder. It has no water, no atmosphere, no life, and no volcanic action, but it's loaded with gold. And that normally is on the other side of the sun. But when Planet X came up and stopped the Earth and Venus in their orbits, the dark twin came around the from the backside of the sun, and it got stopped too. So there's 3 equal-sized planets. Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin of Earth are all 7,500 miles in diameter, and they're trying to go counterclockwise, and Planet X is trying to go clockwise. And so they're stopped in the orbit, and one of these days it will come within 15 million miles of Earth, and it's got a huge magnetic field, 23 times stronger than Earth's, and it's going to grab the mid-Atlantic ridge, which is a split right from Iceland to Antarctica, that where iron is upwelling from the core, and it's going to grab that magnetically, not physically, and it's going to pull the crust. And now the crust is made of granite, but believe it or not, it floats on molten iron. So it's going to grab the crust and slide it up over the North Pole as it goes by, and it's going to leave the solar system and not come back for another 3,657 years, which is how long it takes to come back. So at that point, the new North Pole is going to be the eastern tip of Brazil. A new continent is going to come up between South America and Africa, and the new sea level is going to be 700 feet above present.
Wow.
And St. Lawrence Seaway is going to rip wide open. Salt water is going to go into the Great Lakes and then down the Mississippi Valley to the Gulf of Mexico. And the whole eastern United States will be separate from the western United States by a 200-mile wide gulf of salt water. And there'll be salt water next to Omaha, Nebraska. And you'll be able to go saltwater fishing for tuna and bluefish and,
that's convenient.
swordfish and stuff from Omaha. And Florida is going to be completely underwater, South Carolina completely underwater, eastern North Carolina, and all of Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, and eastern Texas will be underwater permanently. And California will be a series of islands where the mountains will be left, but everything else will be underwater.
Good news.
So this is going to kill 9 out of 10 people. But those who have achieved kindness and living by the golden rule will be able to reincarnate on the unselfish Earth if they choose, where you can go live on other planets. If you're an old soul, you've been on many planets. A psychic was telling us that millions of years ago, I was on the Pleiades, and a saucer landed with a whole bunch of young people, and Janet was in the group, and I fell in love with her when I saw her, and we've been together ever since for millions of years. Sometimes she's the man and I'm the woman. Sometimes we have children, sometimes we don't. And one time we even had our own flying saucer and would go exploring. So I turned to Janet and I said, "You remember where you parked it?" And she said, "No, I don't." But
Janet, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Where did you park the spaceship?
Well, as a child, starting age 4, my whole dream was to have
your own spaceship.
Yeah, I would tell everybody I need my spaceship.
Right.
I was looking at back of comic books.
You were going to take the cats and go to the moon, right?
Yeah, because they had these spaceships you could buy in the back of the comic books. And I go, I gotta have that. And I was going to take my animals to the moon. So and then I used to dream a lot about ETs in my backyard, and I'd always tell everybody that.
Well, I know I've told you before, but your listeners might enjoy hearing how I met Janet, because that involved ETs.
Oh, let's hear it. This has got to be good. I'm glad that she got a spaceship.
So in 1968, I decided I'm going to teach myself telepathy because, where do you go to school to learn that? So I didn't know how to do it, but I would take a walk outside and look at the stars, and I'd say, "I know there's the good, the bad, and the ugly, so I'd like to contact the good. Would you please get in contact with me?" And then in 1988, a ship came from the Pleiades and took me on board, and I met the Pleiadian ambassador to Earth for a 4-hour discussion about the future. And and after that, I was talking to a psychic, and she goes, you know, you've never had a partner on your wavelength. Well, that was true, because right then, at that point, I had the girlfriend from hell. And I said a prayer every day, please would she meet another man, because I knew if I broke up with her myself, it'd be hell to pay. So, and then one day she came home and said, I met another guy and I'm going to go off with him. Well,
Yes.
okay, fine.
And
I was
bye-bye.
like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. So she said, why don't you ask the Space Brothers to help you find a partner? And I thought, well, I'm 6'2", I'm half Scottish, I'm half Sicilian. I know exactly what I like.
Mhm.
So I said, I want to meet a girl. I mean, I didn't know you could do this, but I did it. I said, she's got to be 6 feet tall. She's got to be half Scottish, half Scandinavian. I didn't care which Scandinavian country.
Right.
And she's got to have reddish blonde hair and blue eyes. And she's got to be at least 6 feet tall. And she's got to be psychic and see UFOs, love all animals, especially cats, and believe less is more, and that she would live in a primitive lifestyle in a cabin on top of a mountain. And that she'd be artistic and creative and have a good sense of humor. And so I didn't date anybody because I thought, let's see if the ETs can find somebody like that, right? So a year later, the only time I would go out, because I didn't drink and I didn't want anyone who would drink.
I love this story.
I didn't want to go to bars. So I didn't go out looking for women. I thought, well, if this really works, the ETs are going to bring me this woman that I want. And so I would go out to lecture about UFOs, like a meditation group would say, would you come and tell us about extraterrestrials? And I'd say, sure. So I'd go over to the house and have dinner and talk to everybody and then leave. And sometimes I booked 2 in one night. So I did that particular night at the beginning of October, probably around October 4th, 1990. And then the second group, that's where I met Janet. Wow. So she tried to call me, and I had another number, but I was never there. So, and then every time I called where she was living, they said, oh, she just left. So it took a while, but then she said, you want to climb, as our first date, you want to climb Acadia Mountain in Acadia National Park in Maine. And I said, sure. So we met there, and we spent 3 hours. It was in October. It was a beautiful fall day with the leaves were turning, and the air and the sky were crystal clear blue, and you could see all the islands and the lakes, and it was just gorgeous. And I went home that night, and I thought, I'm not driving an hour and a half each way to date this girl. So I didn't know where she would be the next day, but I went to Southwest Harbor, Maine, which is where she was born and raised and was living. And I went there, and I didn't know where she was, but I sort of tuned in that she might be in a restaurant. So I drove around various restaurants and went in to see if she was there. And I went into one, and she was sitting with an older woman having lunch. And I plopped myself down right next to her, and I said, when there was a pause in the conversation and they're looking at me like, what are you doing here? I said, get your stuff, you're moving in with me. And that was almost 29 years ago.
Wow. So Janet, how'd you see all that, Janet?
Well, ETs have a way of getting people together, and I felt it was meant to be because I was single for the first time for a year, and I really couldn't find a partner at all because
she was living with a billionaire, and he traded her in for 220s.
Who needs a billionaire?
He had a 22-year-old nurse on each knee, and she said, what's this? And he goes, get your stuff and you're done.
Probably looked like Elon Musk. I'd dump him too.
I was it was meant to be because I was getting lonely and I really couldn't find her.
But you always had.
Wait a minute, I feel like a song. Hang on. Lonely, I'm Mr. Miss Lonely.
You get lonely when you get single.
What happened?
Yeah, she was 37. She was 37 and I was 42.
Right.
5-year difference.
So it's like an ET love boat.
Huh?
It's like an ET love boat thing going on there.
Yeah,
it was, yeah. It was so interesting. And she's in contact mostly with the Zetas, and I'm in contact mostly with the Pleiadians.
But I have seen the Pleiadian ships.
But she can see fourth dimensional things that I can't see.
Right.
And she also sees dead people. She's a psychic. She does psychic readings.
Well, Gordon, those sounds like some bonuses. You didn't sound like you asked for those, but those are some bonuses they threw in with Janet.
Right.
Well, I had things happened before I met Gordon. I was on a spiritual path since I was about 17. Anyway, asking questions of the meaning of life and, trying to be enlightened. And so this was all. Then Gordon was some like-minded person I finally met that thought like I did, so I could talk freely with him. I was lonely before because I didn't find anybody on my wavelength.
The funny thing is, I printed up a brochure like you. I forget what I said exactly, but it was something about if you don't think you've been abducted, you're wrong because everybody's being contacted.
It was about his
and I gave it to her
yeah.
when I met her, and I gave it to her, and she didn't read it. She just took it home, but she had vivid dreams of UFOs that night. And then she pulled out this paper and started reading it, and it was me talking about experiences with extraterrestrials. And immediately she spent every minute trying to call. I had 2 phone numbers. One was at a house where I wasn't living, and the other was at the house I was living, and she always called the wrong number.
That didn't happen 36 years ago, did it?
UFO experiences because when I was a kid they go, oh,
you're in your environment with it. She had 8 siblings. There were 9 kids in her family, and none of them believed in any of this stuff. And she'd say, what's the meaning of life? Let's talk about that. And they're like, forget it. The meaning of life is you're born, you earn money, and then you die, and that's that. And she goes, no. But
anyway, it took me
they weren't supporting
Gordon was one of the first ones that I met that I could really talk out all this stuff that I've always been interested in.
All the things you felt.
I never had a partner I could do that with.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Everybody needs a partner they can talk to. But I see there's somebody in the live chat named Doug White trying to set me up to ask this question here. He says, have you ever seen any lesbian Sasquatches in Maine?
Any what?
Any what?
Any lesbian Sasquatches?
No, we did have 2 Sasquatch experiences, and one of them involved a UFO. Would you like to hear about that?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Doug.
Okay, well, we were going to buy some land in Jackson, Maine. We were clearing some brush around this little mound where that would be a nice high spot to put a cabin. And it was really hot and steamy. It was in the summer, and there were mosquitoes everywhere, and it was really hard work. So we cut a whole bunch of stuff, and then we piled it up and we sat down and we're like sweating and it's hot and it's like, and then we heard this breathing and then all of a sudden this giant snap, and it was a branch that was so big that I'm sure just from the sound of it snapping that if you took it in your hands, you couldn't snap it.
Wow.
And this heavy breathing, and I go, Janet, that's something that weighs more than 1,000 pounds because listen to the breath. You could hear the breathing, the huge lungs, it was really, and then it stopped, and we go, uh-oh, because we heard the snap, and it must have realized that it was coming to see who we were, but it cracked that branch, so it stopped, and we just sat there silently, nothing happened. But we felt that was a Bigfoot that if he had come any closer, we would have seen him.
Right, he did let out a scream.
So you think that...
Well, no, that was in 2006. So in 2006, we have a bonfire pit at the top of the mountain and a big picnic table that I built.
Nice.
It holds 20 people. And so we invited a friend over who was a real skeptic, and he didn't believe in any of this stuff, and he was worried that I would mention it whenever I'm with him and somebody else and embarrass him. So we invited him over, and it was the full moon. We've done that a lot, had a bonfire the night before the full moon and call in the saucers. That's the way we describe it. So we're sitting up there, the bonfire's going, the sun is set, the full moon is rising, and I'm looking out at the ocean, and Janet and Chris were talking to each other. And I go, oh my God, look at that. And so they turn and look at the ocean, and there was this huge white cotton ball. It had to be like at least a mile in diameter. Looked exactly like a cotton ball you'd buy in the drugstore.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And the sun had already set, so it was a bright white. It was almost like it was somehow lit, but it looked like it had a lot of loose threads, and it was a perfect sphere. And it was coming straight off the ocean from I first noticed it was about 25 miles out. And it came to where it crossed the coastline, and then it suddenly darted to the right, which would be west, because we're looking at the ocean in the south and the islands and the UFO. So it was white until it crossed the shoreline 2 miles from us, and then it turned the most beautiful LED green that you can imagine.
Right.
And going really fast, it darted from like the left side in front of us to the right side in front of us. And when it got over to the right side, which was just like, a flash, all of a sudden it flashed and became a green, LED blue, the most beautiful blue you've ever seen. And then it just disappeared. It didn't wink out or go anywhere. It just disappeared. It like flashed out of existence in our dimension. And I said, well, that's really good because when you see blue, that's usually a very high spiritual being or consciousness, whatever that was, involved some really very high consciousness. But the interesting thing was when I said, look at that coming off the ocean, all of a sudden we heard a scream from the woods to our left in the east side of the mountain that sounded like a Bigfoot suddenly realized there was a UFO coming, and it startled him, and he gave a really huge, deep scream like you've never heard before. When neither of us have ever heard it before, and we felt that there was some connection with that UFO coming in the Bigfoot, but we weren't sure what it was.
Wow. So, Janet, were you scared?
No, because I had already like in meditation, I had already felt that there was a Bigfoot close by up there, up here. So, and we had already heard one before that. So I'm not really so scared of them because I feel like, first of all, they like innocence. They like children, and they don't run from children or hurt from children.
Right, they can sense whether you're a threat or not.
Yeah. So obviously, if they got near Nancy Pelosi, they would know that she's a threat type of thing. Hey, let me ask you something though. We got questions coming in. It says, for one, are mermaids real?
That was interesting because I was just talking to Nancy Leader, who has zetatalk.com. Everyone should go look at it. 42,000 pages of questions from the public answered by extraterrestrials. And so in 2015, they did an article. This animal was photographed in the Aegean Sea near a cave that was about 30 inches long, maybe even a little bit less than that, with a horse head kind of head. And he stuck his nose and his eyes up above the surface and looked at the guy shooting this video. So it was on the Daily Mail. I think the headline of the Daily Mail, if people would like to look it up, is something like tourist baffled sea monster, sea monster. But
I like the Daily Mail, man. I keep refreshing that for more tourists.
The Zetas were asked what that was, and they said there's 4 species on the Earth who do not interact with humans, that have advanced souls, that accumulate karma and reincarnate, and they live a life separate from humans, but at the apocalypse, they're going to start interacting more and more with humans, and these are the types of beings. Well, this first one is like a sort of a mermaid, but have you ever seen a seahorse, how in a really small scale it looks like it has the head of a horse? That's why they call it a seahorse.
Right, sure.
Yeah. So this one was about less than 3 feet long, and they live in caves in warm water areas like the Aegean Sea, and they avoid contact with humans. But this one was quite interested in this guy and surfaced near his boat and allowed him to shoot a video of it. And that's a real being, and there's a whole race of them. And they're not really mermaids or mermen, but they are real, and they are here, and they do avoid contact with it, but they're as intelligent as we are. Then the second group they mentioned, which was really interesting, was Men in Black. And they live under the surface in caverns, and they don't want anything to come out about extraterrestrials, so they have a history of like showing up at somebody's house wearing a black suit, a white shirt, and a black tie, and a black limo, and knocking on the door and saying, what you saw, don't talk about it, or whatever they do. But that's usually the story.
Well,
and so can you imagine later on that you would invite them in and have a cup of tea with them, and they would tell you what it's like to live under the surface?
Well, Gordon, as long as there's nothing like a mer homo. But let me ask you something. There's people watching, and they're hearing you guys, and you guys are obviously very spiritual. You're kind of like in tune. You have these experiences. You see things. Now, for a lot of our audience, their whole life may consist of going down to Walmart, and work at the sanitation department. Their
I
life.
love, listen, that's an extraterrestrial experience, those wall Martians.
Okay, Gordon. That was great, man. I like that. I need a little drum roll right there. So yeah, you know what I'm saying. The people, their mundane lives, they go down to Walmart, and they get a loaf of bread. In their lives, they don't have these experiences. Is it because that they haven't, their vibrations are all messed up due to like 5G or something? I mean,
Yeah, but it isn't that they're bad people. It's just that their consciousness hasn't reached a point where they can handle the whole subject.
right.
It's
Well, so how can
the
you
alien
assist them?
to
How can
them.
you? What are your and Janet's recommendation for these folks that live such mundane, unspiritual lives where nothing's happening? Man, turn on the
Well,
news, they get
I don't
disgusted.
know. Go to History Channel every Friday and watch Ancient Aliens from 10 in the morning till 4 in the morning on Saturday.
Like binge watch Ancient Aliens with Giorgio Totolio.
Yeah,
I,
Dusakis or whatever his name,
okay,
Tusiak.
so are you saying that will help people become spiritual?
Well, no, I think you've got to first of all open up your world. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to allow for these things, and a lot of people have never been taught that there is such a reality, that there's other beings on other planets. They
Mm-hmm.
come here, they're extremely interested in helping us survive the pole shift and become spiritual and graduate to the next dimension. And there's also going to be a new race on Earth because we were intentionally designed by selfish extraterrestrials from Planet X, the Anunnaki. They're 8 to 12 foot tall humans, and they designed us to be good gold mining slaves, but not smart enough to realize that we're eternal souls. So
Mm-hmm.
most people have an atrophied pineal gland, and they never have that spiritual sense, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe different lifetimes, but I also feel I've been on a journey for a long time, and it hasn't always been easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was, and
Well, she had a really hard lifetime this lifetime,
yeah,
and I think it helped her grow antenna that she didn't know
I
she had.
definitely
She
because
didn't know she could have, but she does have now.
yeah,
She's so psychic and so intuitive. And, some of these people that are really evil
Mm-hmm.
can jewelry on and an expensive dress, and they're standing there and they're trying to look really good. Janet looks at them. It's just like that movie. What is it? They Live or They're
yeah, the
Alive, or
alien movie. You put
where
your
you
glasses
put the
on.
glasses on and you see that they're really perverted, selfish beings of the worst kind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when she looks at people, she sees that. If that's what they are, she doesn't see their makeup and their earrings and their dresses. She sees a really perverted evil being.
Okay, Janet. Okay, Janet. Janet. I'm thinking of a number. Between 1 and 10. Can you tell me what it is?
Oh, let's say 7.
Okay. What if you add 4 to it, or subtract 4?
3.
3.
All right, you got it. I was just checking. So no, that's what I'm saying. People have got to sort of work up to build up their spirituality. I think this world is like a vampire, man. It's always sucking the spiritual life out of people. And
That's right. And you
Yes.
should really spend some time alone meditating and praying, because that puts you in touch with your guardian angels. Then everybody has them, whether they think they do or not. You do. And you can be in touch with them. And they can't change things. Like they can't, like if something breaks in your hand, they can't fix it, because that would be messing around on Earth. They actually could fix it, but they're not going to, because that accumulates karma for them. So, but what they do is they constantly give you inspiration and direction. So if you're praying and meditating, then they're constantly in touch with you saying, well, this is a better choice than that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And your life will turn from being unhappy repetition of boring stuff to a new world of excitement at all times.
And you have to sort of pick a right path. Like, I had real difficulty at age 17, so I thought, well, I'm going to find out a way to become happier and more enlightened. I didn't want to feel like I did.
Yeah.
So I took that path, and I seeked out people that were like-minded that way, and I talked to so many people who have been on their spiritual paths, that have seen UFOs, and you see how many are out there once you...
Well, now we both see auras, so when we go out in public, sometimes we'll see somebody that looks like they have a bank of floodlights all around them. Their aura is so bright white. And we'll cross the street to go stop them and start talking to them. They're always the most spiritual people. But Also, we can see people that have no auras, and people that have troubled auras, and
Yeah.
people that are screwed up.
I see a lot of them people. Hey, all right, we got numbers of questions. Let's just try to get through a number of these here. What's your guys' thoughts on the pole shift?
It's real. What can I tell you?
Well, I've had many dreams of pole shift. I've been in the water. I've been swimming. I've been trying to get rescued on an island. I try to go to an island. I see rising water all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I feel earthquakes a month before they come. I mean, 6 months before they come. My name Stanley means standing on the ley lines, and I'm feeling a lot of pressure right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel things are really.
Well, you know, there's the resonance that the Earth vibrates at, the Schumann resonance.
Uh-huh.
Well, some days it's been doubling and tripling. And I was talking to Nancy Leader, and she says when it accelerates like that, just randomly on a certain day, it'll accelerate.
Mm-hmm.
And the vibration of Earth, she said she feels like biting people's heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And Janet feels like people become angry without knowing why. They get migraines. You know, everybody's different. Some people feel nauseous and they want to throw up. Other people have migraines. Other people are really angry and snappish.
Yeah, and what's causing that, Gordon?
And it goes away. And I don't really ever feel that, but I do feel there's a pressure. There's some sort of, and I think it's partly because people, even if they don't consciously aren't aware that we're about to have a worldwide disaster. And it's what we're doing is we're sweeping the earth with a clean new broom to get ready for a new world. And you've got to get rid of these evil, selfish people.
It's interesting you say that, Gordon, because I was just listening to Ted and Austin Brower today. I don't know if you know them. They're with Health Masters. They were talking about this whole thing in Washington D.C. This lock, this grid, this angst and this anger that is there really is nationwide, and they're just emblematic of it. But they said that this turmoil. They said, and basically agreeing with you, is that something major is getting ready to happen, and people are feeling it, and they're getting angry because their lives are going to be so upended.
Right, but see, they don't have a spiritual path because they've always been selfish. They're trying to help have a new world. First of all, World War III, then a new world government where there's bureaucrats in charge of your life from another country, and the elite have all that they need, and everyone else has less than they need. So that's the kind of world these people want to bring, and the people that are behind it are the Soros money. There's 525 organizations full-time protesting against Trump, and the top 100 of them have received over $200 million of Soros money to keep protesting. These guys aren't there because that's what they feel in their hearts. They're out there because they're getting paid to be there.
Well, I do know, I showed before the program here, in my ranting points, there's a video out there of somebody named Sheila Jackson up in Washington that during the Miss Fraud and Kavanaugh thing going on there, she handed Miss Fraud's attorney an envelope full. It looks like it's full of money to me. So there's a lot. It's just people getting paid, and then of course Miss Fraud got hundreds of thousands of dollars from GoFundMe. So you're right. It is about money. Janet,
$730,000 so far for GoFundMe for Dr.
Now, how many women out there are going to see that magic number there and think, "Wait a minute, I think somebody did something to me too"? All they got to do is have come up with a story
I
with
have
no
no
facts.
doubt that something happened to her, but the fact that she couldn't remember who did it for 30 years. Then she sees Kavanaugh's picture in the newspapers because Romney said he would name him to the Supreme Court if he were elected. Then she remembers that Brett Kavanaugh's mother is the one who foreclosed on their house and kicked him out on the street. And then it all came together. But it goes beyond that. She's a rabid Democrat. She's a rabid member of the ACLU. She wears the vagina hat. She marches on everything against Trump. And some people in her family work for the CIA. And she's a CIA recruiter on the Palo Alto University campus where she's a psychology professor.
You've done your research. All that, what you just said, has been verified. And her brother has something to do with the creation of Fusion GPS.
Right. It's all linked. And, it's like that woman who said, well, Brett exposed himself while I was flat drunk on the floor at Yale. And she goes, well, I couldn't remember who it was, but after I spoke to my rabid Democratic lawyer for 6 days in a row, she convinced me that it was Brett. Now I know that it was Brett.
And that butch-looking lawyer of hers was seen coming out of Hillary's house.
Right, and the thing is that where are you going to get a more qualified guy than this to be on the Supreme Court? I mean, he submitted 480,000 pages of documents on his life. He was so high up in the Bush administration, George W. Bush wouldn't go anywhere without him right next to him. He had the nuclear launch codes. So, I mean, this guy's been examined 6 times. This will be the 7th. And he's been the most trusted person in the country. And he's excelled in every way. He participated in 2,000 decisions on the D.C. Court of Appeals, and he wrote the decisions in 300 cases, of which 13 were appealed to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, this is brilliant. We're adopting this as our judgment in this case. So he's flawless. And to attack him in this way, I was so glad when he spoke up for himself at the second part of that hearing on Thursday. Because I thought, this is going nowhere.
Okay,
I felt such anxiety. And
let me ask.
I'll tell you this, Daniel, and you can tell me what you think.
All right.
But a lot of people have said to me, this is going to come down to civil war. And I'm beginning to wonder whether it will. And the thing is that, the Democrats would have to get in power and try and take everybody's guns away. But if that doesn't happen and it just breaks out in civil war, Democrats aren't in such a good position because all the deplorables with God, the Bible, and guns are armed to the teeth. Armed to the teeth.
Yeah, let me ask Janet. You saw? Did you see Miss Fraud's testimony?
She heard a little bit.
Yeah. I didn't watch it like.
No, I was
okay,
glued
but
to
from
it.
a woman's standpoint, how did you feel what was going on?
Well, as a woman, it's a very touchy situation to really go out there and talk about it because you don't want.
Excuse me.
Because you want other women to think you really care about women, which you do. Because I've had bad experiences and I care deeply.
Janet was raped.
But I think there's a point where there are some women that will say there's rape and it doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, she says, I was pushed from behind into a dark room. Well, she didn't even see who pushed her. And later she comes to the conclusion, but it turns out his best friend is his exact clone. Even in high school, they look like twins. Today, at age 53, they still look like twins.
I think each one of us have to make a decision and pray on it. And because the world's such a mess. Right. And it's like it's going to take prayer and it's going to take meditation.
Also, it's clear something happened to her.
Yeah. It just shows you
but as to whether it was Brett Kavanaugh that did it, I severely doubt that.
There was somebody behind Senator Dianne Feinstein, some bush-looking woman, man. It looks like some kind of Nazi. I don't know if you guys saw that. I got the picture up on the screen now. Scared the crap out of me looking at this woman, man. You think she'd be... you just see her in some kind of like Nazi outfit, like marching people to a death camp or something. But hey, we got a question for you. It says, do the Illuminati, are they involved with all this?
Oh yeah, and they're being cleaned out. See, what people don't realize is that in August of 2015, General Dunford got totally fed up with Barack Obama and declared double secret martial law. So we've been under martial law. So they have military tribunals trying people. John McCain didn't die of cancer. He's sentenced to life in solitary in Guantanamo Bay, where he sits right now. He can watch TV, but he'll never be allowed to communicate to the outside world. He was tried in a tribunal and convicted. And, he was a really, really evil man. He had a huge foundation that the Saudi Arabians donated hundreds of millions of dollars to, and he used all of that. He's the one that kept flying the poison gas into Syria so that it could be used to start World War III, and he failed 3 times. But anyway, so there's over probably between 30 and 40,000 sealed indictments right now. The government, the Pentagon's been hiring experienced trial lawyers to try these cases, and they're going to start being tried. Have you ever heard of QAnon?
QAnon? No, I haven't.
QAnon is somebody who has a blog.
QAnon. Yeah, QAnon. Yeah, okay, go ahead
And
though.
he's always right on.
Hmm.
And he said there's 3 movies, and movie 1 just ended, and movie 2 is about to begin this fall. Well, what is movie 2?
Mm.
So, but the Zetas said, when Putin handed Trump a soccer ball,
Mhm.
remember that?
Yeah,
Trump went over to Helsinki and met with Putin, and Putin handed him a World Cup soccer ball.
right.
Trump knew what was in there.
Yeah.
Putin had all the documents on every single member of the Cabal in the United States on thumb drives, and that ball was full of thumb drives. This is what the
Wow.
Zetas say.
Wow.
And that was to help with the prosecution because Russia has been very successful in getting rid of the Cabal. They're not finished; they have a lot to go, but he's helping the United States. I mean, we've been partners in space since 1973 with Russia. Nobody realizes that. The one culture in the entire world that's most like us is the Russian people.
Mhm.
They're Christian. They're Western. You ever hear that phrase, "white Russians"?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can make
right.
them.
You know what that refers to?
It's a good drink.
No, this general in the Roman
I might have a
army,
white Russian here.
Cyril, goes,
Really?
the Roman the Roman Empire is falling apart. I've had it with all of them. I'm taking my whole army. I don't know how many tens of thousands of soldiers, and they all moved to Moscow. That's why the Russian language is Cyrillic. It's named after the Roman general Cyril.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who white Russians are, is Italians from the Roman Empire who have the same interest in culture and society as we do. They're not going to put Sharia law in Moscow. They're not going to allow that. And the same unselfish extraterrestrials are working with Putin, with Xi, and with Trump, and Pentagon, General Dunford. And what's going on is in each country, there's sort of like the dead weight of their own deep swamp. And each leader they can't just come out and say, well, this is what we're going to do, because then they'll be assassinated the next day. So they've got to work behind the scenes carefully to clean out the deep swamp. And that's what each one is doing. But they're on the same page. They know poleshift is going to happen. They're debating how to announce it, because now Trump's got this unbelievable burst of economic progress. You don't want everybody to say, "Oh my God, I'm taking the wife and kids and heading for the mountains." But that's actually, and I'm telling this to your listeners, run for the hills. Where you are is not safe, and that's what you should be doing. But we'll know 49 days before poleshift, because Planet X will move far enough from the sun that every single person on Earth looking up will go, "Oh my God, what's that in the sky next to the sun at the 4 o'clock position?" And that's Planet X. And that is, mark your calendars, because 49 days later, we're going to have geographic pole shift. And the new North Pole is going to be the eastern tip of Brazil.
We have this question here. It says, why does Lucifer require the Illuminati to worship him?
Well, see, I don't really believe it, but I do believe there was a person who, see, before Lucifer came, people were in touch with nature and with the world. And if they needed more rain for the crops, it would rain. If they needed it drier and the rain to stop, it would stop. If they needed food, they'd come around the corner and there would be a tree loaded with fruit, or, stuff like that. Everyone was in touch. And Lucifer came and said, no, you should use your mind and make tools. And then you should, and that was the whole start of it. And Lucifer, this was a long, long time ago, and Lucifer himself has had to reincarnate over and over and over again to try and fix this. But we're moving back to it. That's what it's going to be like when we move to the fourth dimension. Instead of being centered in our minds, we're going to be centered in our hearts, which is why, Janet keeps talking about all the time about the most important thing you can learn is love.
Janet, how can somebody learn love?
Well, I've learned over the years, I can feel love from my son and my grandson.
With your heart.
And with my heart. You
And
feel
other
it with
people.
the heart. And you open up to that and you try to be in the light, you pray, you try to be a
Alright.
better person all the
Okay, I'm good with that.
time. It's
Yeah.
a,
I
it's
mean,
you
that's a
try to not get caught up with what's all
sub
the
issues, right?
sub issues and things, the negative
I mean,
stuff.
set a goal for yourself. Every day you're going to be nicer than you were the day before.
Yeah, you just try to stay on the right path. You
And
can
that's
ask
how
for help.
you become love. And I mean, Janet had a dream where the apocalypse was just about to happen. There was going to be huge waves coming in.
Okay.
She was on, all her family are lobstermen. She was on one of the family's boats, and the whole family was on the boat, and they realized they were going to die in the tidal wave, and they got in a circle and they held hands and they each told each other that they love each other, and then the dream ended. So she didn't know, did they get rescued?
Well, there
because
was a
the
huge
ETs,
light coming down, like a
the,
saucer light, or
the ETs will,
yeah, or a light
will
from heaven.
beam up people who don't need to go
Yeah.
through the tribulation.
So I knew we were going to be okay, no matter if we were on that boat or not.
dead.
Yeah, or dead. I've had several dreams of where I've died and what it's like afterwards.
You saw that movie about the crystal skulls, and there's this Russian agent from Lithuania, and she mixes up her W's, and she goes, she wants to know the answer to everything. As the Mayan temple turns into a flying saucer, she gets swept up, and as she's dying, she goes, "It's all about love."
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's
Indiana
love.
Jones movie. You must have seen that.
So
Kingdom of Skulls.
okay, so is
That's
there levels of love, levels of spirituality?
Love is universal on all dimensions,
Mhm.
on all levels. So you see that we're on this third dimension now, where the selfish can mess with the unselfish,
Mhm.
and that's so that each can get to know the other and watch out for them.
Do
The next level
do
beyond that is the fourth dimension, where everything is separate. So there's separate planets, selfish people only or unselfish people only, and then the fifth dimension, all is one. So and that's only the beginning of the dimensions, because you're going to progress. You're a creator in training, so you eventually will progress to the level that the creator is at, and you will join with the creator, and then together you can do whatever you want to do after that.
do
create
the
new
ETs have the capacity to love?
Yes, but the Zetas had bred out emotions, because they figured emotions was where we all went wrong, and sex. So that's why they decided to clone each other, have no sex organs, and they actually genetically blocked out feelings. So then they came to Earth to study us. The Council of Worlds said, go to Earth and study those humans. Well, first of all, they were amazed to find that our DNA was an exact match with theirs.
Oh.
Second of all, they discovered that, wow, it wasn't a good decision to get rid of emotions, because look at the beautiful emotions people on Earth have. And then they realized it wasn't a good idea to clone themselves, because the cloning started to fail. So then they're going, well, now what are we going to do if we're going to die out as a species? So they decided, let's create a new hybrid race. And so the humans that will be born in a new race will be regular humans with 2 arms and 2 legs. They'll have sex. They'll fall in love. They'll play music and build things and create things. And they'll live 400 years and have IQs of over 300 and be completely telepathic with any other living being in the universe.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of sex in 400 years, sounds like to me. So, that's also the promise of artificial intelligence, that people will live 400 or 500 years. It's kind of a side-by-side storyline there.
This is so stupid, but it's actually frightening, because if this wasn't going to happen and the Cabal could stay in power, which they're about to be rooted out, pulled up by the roots.
Yeah.
If it weren't for that, that's the world they envision. Artificial intelligence, more than enough, everything the elite would ever hope to have, all created by slave robots and slaves, and then everyone else would have less than they need. That's why Osama bin Laden, when he was in the cave in Tora Bora, issued a fatwa saying, I want all Muslims to treat the communists as brothers, because they're the same as us. So I call this Islamunistic, but you could also call it Obamunistic.
What? Say what?
Yeah.
Obamanistic. What now?
Yeah, well, that's what you see. There's no difference between the Muslims and the communists, and that's the social system. And that's what the New World Order wants to bring. And that's what Trump is against. That's what this populism, make America great. It doesn't mean be part of a world empire.
Does Trump
No.
also want to make other civilizations great as well? I mean, are they picking up the message of
Yeah.
prosperity?
Yeah, didn't you hear him at the UN and other times at meetings? He goes, what I'm doing in the United States, each of you should be doing for your own country.
I heard that, yeah. And so the aliens need to be doing that for their own planets.
Well, they are, you see. Right now, there's over 1,000 alien races are here on the fourth dimension where you can't see them. The fourth dimension is like you're on this radio station listening to it. There's other radio stations, you know that, but you're not listening to them, so you don't know what they're saying. But in fourth dimension, it's at a higher vibration, so there could be a mothership parked in your yard. You could be walking through the alien kitchen just to get to your car in the morning. So. But you wouldn't know that because they're on a totally different frequency. But we're going to that frequency. That's what this ascension is all about. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to become ascended, then I'm going to live on a cloud in heaven, and I'm never going to have to think or work or do anything again. That is so stupid and empty. And there's a progression of levels that you keep achieving higher and higher levels. So that's the future.
I want to say that the ETs that I've dealt with are on a much higher level of spirituality than we are. They send me unconditional love.
Yeah, like they transmit it, they broadcast it.
Yeah, they transmit it.
You can feel it, you can see it.
So different races have different ways of
but see, there's all kinds of beings that have achieved this level. Some of them look like jellyfish, some look like frogs, some look like
Octopus?
Algae. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Now you know I was going to go there sometime tonight. But Janet, how do you know what is this? How do you express the knowledge of this love? Is it warmth? Is it electricity? They giving you big hugs? What's going on?
It's hard to really say what love is, but it's a really warm feeling.
Well, they accept you.
Yeah, they accept me, and when my son and my grandson and my daughter-in-law and Gordon, I just feel this incredible love, and
you experience it.
Yeah, I'm experiencing it. Just like when people say, well, you don't know if you had an ET experience. How would you know? See, you can't always explain everything.
Well, it's mind-boggling, first of all. And I'm sure, I have friends that have been interested in the subject for years, and they go, well, no saucer ever landed in my yard, so now I don't believe it.
Right.
And in a sense, he's saying, well, if you really are there, then land in my yard, then I'll know you're there. But I knew they were there before they landed in my yard, before they came and got me, because, I was studying science. I was going to be a rocket scientist. I went to school for Aerospace Engineering. I was selected as a future astronaut at age 15. So I have a tremendous scientific background. But when I was in my early 20s, I go, I'm going around this all wrong. And what was wrong is that scientists want to repeat something over and over and over, so then they know it, and therefore they can believe in it. But I would feel in my heart whether something was true. Even if I never saw a shred of truth, I didn't know what proof. I didn't know what proof was for that. But I just heard something and I knew it was true, and I knew there were extraterrestrials, and I knew I could contact them. And then I did. So I want to say that if that's your fond goal, you can achieve it, because I have, and I never thought I would. I wanted to, but to think I would be, when I was 20, that I would be where I am now at age 70, it never occurred to me.
And same here. I never thought I would know what I know now back then. I just couldn't imagine knowing what I know now.
But listen, can I say that Janet and I are bouncing along the bottom of the Social Security economy, which is really pathetic. And if somebody likes what we're saying and they'd like to support us, can I give an address where they could send a donation?
Absolutely.
Okay. The address is P.O. Box 51, just like Area 51 in Nevada. We got that without asking for it. P.O. Box 51, Ellsworth, Maine. ELLSWORTH, Ellsworth, Maine, ME, 04605. So P.O. Box 51, Ellsworth, Maine, 04605. You can send a check, cash, money order. You can send a postcard. You could send me a birthday card for my 70th birthday. You could write a letter about what you think about what we said. Anything you want to do. That's where we get mail. And if somebody were to donate, that would really help us out a lot, because we're so far behind the 8 ball. I mean, Social Security hasn't even gone up 3% a year in what, 10 years? It's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. But there is no help from the ETs. They don't have any cash up there.
Well, I don't know what they have, but I was like, well, they can do a lot of things. Why don't they open up a gold mine in the granite, and I could just drop a stone on the granite and it would crack, and I'd pull it up and look, and there'd be gold, But
haven't
it hasn't.
Haven't the reptoids ever heard of PayPal?
Yeah. Well, I feel blessed by seeing them. I really do, and experiencing my spiritual path. Anything spiritual with angels and God. But I feel the ETs are kind of. We have free will, so I don't feel that they're gonna.
No, they're never gonna mess with us and
they can't
make
mess
us do
with us.
something one way or the other, because each of us has lessons we have to learn.
We're all hoping we'll be beamed up to a good place if poleshift happens.
Yeah, because they have suggested, not certainly said, but they have suggested that there are some souls on Earth who don't need to go through the tribulation, and they would be taken up onto mothership before it happens. So
hopefully,
that's, I guess, what's in the Bible as the rapture, although the normal Christian interpretation of that's a little different. But
Gordon, I'd hope that the ETs would have a better Social Security system than we do.
Oh my God!
Oh God!
I mean, they would allow for intergalactic inflation, and you can get a pretty good raise, I think.
Well, let me give you an example. I worked off the books most of my life, so I only get $495 worth of Social Security.
Wow.
Okay.
That's nothing.
Well, but I own the mountaintop, so I don't want the state to take it because of my medical bills. So I buy supplemental insurance. I could go on Maine Care, but they would immediately attach the house, and when I die, they'd sell it to pay off their debt and keep the change too.
Bastards.
And so to keep them from attaching my property, I have to buy supplemental insurance from Blue Cross Anthem. Well, guess how much that costs? $420 a month. So now I get $495, and I have to pay $420, and that's because Janet doesn't own anything. I own it, so I've left it in trust for somebody else to keep for the benefit of Janet, whatever she wants to do, sell it, take the money, or whatever, keep her living, help her out, whatever. They would be the trustee, and then when she dies, then they would get all of my property. So that's the way I've set it up. So I don't want my property to go to the state of Maine. I just had double hip replacement. That was $150,000 right there. I had to wait 5 years to go on Medicare to get that surgery.
Wow. So Janet, are you on Social Security too?
Yeah, I'm 65.
So is you get 420, or you get more than that? That seems kind of low.
It is low, and she gets double that. But it's still it's not enough.
Get more than
the taxes on this house are $3,400 a year. They're taxing me for the view, not the house. I built the house in 4 days for $11,000, and
without the
we
help
lived
of
in it
ETs, I bet.
years.
We work really hard up here surviving.
Right. We don't have plumbing. We bathe out in the yard.
And it gets cold in the winter.
That's not good. You guys eating blueberries and lobsters all the time?
Yeah.
Only way you can survive?
Well, I will admit that, I go to Walmart. I love that store, I gotta say. And they have really good ribeye steaks, really cheap. So we cooked a ribeye steak, marinated it with olive oil and teriyaki and garlic and red pepper flakes. And then we cooked it, and we split that. So she had half of a small ribeye. Yeah. But, we try and eat well. But it's just that, food isn't getting any cheaper. Have you noticed?
No. Well, maybe you ought to make a show, cooking on the mountain with Gordon.
Yeah, lobsters are as expensive in Maine as anywhere else. I mean, they're expensive.
No,
well,
they're
not
cheaper
quite.
here. No, come on.
Yeah.
But sometimes the years are very expensive.
$5.50 a pound. I bet you can't get a lobster
Try
for
to get one at
$5.50 a pound.
Christmas. Then you pay a lot.
Well, $11 a pound.
What about reptilian steak?
That's cheap compared to other places. People tell me it's $25 a pound to go get a lobster.
I grew up living right around here in Maine, on the island. I grew up with fresh fish, shrimp, lobster. In fact, when my father grew up, there was lobsters crawling along the beach, and they used it for fertilizer.
Wow.
There's all these pens where they're raising Atlantic salmon,
Mm-hmm.
and we can get fresh Atlantic salmon that's absolutely delicious. The cheapest of anybody because this is where they grow. It's just like with the lobsters. This is where they catch them. So of course we get them the cheapest. And all of Janet's family are lobstermen. Sometimes they would give us lobsters. Just come on over. We'll give you a mess of lobsters.
But
But
we don't cook this
Well,
much.
they need to bring some
so
indoor plumbing
but
over there
then
with them too.
they smoke salmon. They smoke the salmon here. Well, you can go pay $20 or more a pound for smoked salmon. We can buy it for $3 a pound.
Well, how come the ETs aren't helping you guys any? That don't sound like love. They ain't no love. They ain't
I mean,
helping.
they are from the point of view we've met a nice number of people have contacted us by sending a donation, and then I send them my phone number, and then they call me, and then I've got all kinds of friends I didn't even know of 10 years ago around the world that are so wonderful and so and they really appreciate what we're talking about because nobody else is really putting it this way, and we're the real deal. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up if you wanted to.
Well, I'll tell you what, you surely couldn't, and I definitely want to have you guys back. I appreciate you coming on the show. Gordon, what's that? What time can people listen to your show again?
Midnight Fridays on Revolution Radio. They have a website, revolution.radio, and there's two studios, Studio A and Studio B, and I'm on Studio A at midnight till 2 a.m. Saturday morning.
All right. So, Janet, you and Gordon want to come back on the show sometime?
Oh, I want to. Well, we'd love to do a Christmas show with you, but I really want to come and talk about Ormus. It's going to blow your mind what
Got
goes
to talk
on
about
with
the
that
Ormus.
stuff.
We have to do an Ormus Christmas special.
Oh, you got to wait until then.
Yep.
Don't you want your audience to learn how to make it at home and start?
Well, they do need to know. They do need to know about the Ormus because a shocking amount of people don't know anything about it.
Well, I'm telling you, you do a search on YouTube for Ormus and you will come up with, but there's one video. If you still have your pen and paper out, this is the one YouTube video you have to watch.
Okay.
And it's this famous historian, Sir Lawrence Gardner, who unfortunately is dead now. He's not around anymore. I wish he were. But anyway, the video is called Lost Secrets of the Sacred Ark.
Ooh.
And he talks all about monoatomic gold and the other noble group metals.
Okay. All right. I'll certainly do that. Gordon and Jen, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight.
But if you got a space, don't be shy. I mean, you just called us yesterday.
Right.
If you get a space one of these Saturday nights, get me on here because I can't wait to talk about it. We're taking it every day. It's making us more psychic. I got stories to tell you just about what's happened to you since we started taking it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I got to let you go. Gordon, we'll have you and Janet back on the show.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
God bless you.
God bless. And
God bless your listeners.
All right.
Yeah.
I had a psychic said that I've got ETs listening to my show. He said it was 3 Fridays ago. He goes, do you know there's 1.5 million extraterrestrials on starships in the solar system listening to your show right now?
And they all must know that this show is ending. Wow. All right. We'll talk to you guys later.
Okay. Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was Gordon and Janet giving us an update in their life up there on the mountain in Maine. And always interesting to talk to them. And definitely we've got to have them back. Y'all got to know about the Ormus. And so we'll get that going for you. Next week, Troy Anderson and Paul McGuire was going to be talking about their new book, Trump Apocalypse, Trump versus the Global Elite. And isn't there a global elite war going on right now? Thank you, everyone, for your great questions. This program will get to replay in the main player directly after the show. We'll put it up in our YouTube channel and in our TuneIn radio playlist. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Daniel Ott for The Edge. Bye-bye.